Wow. Wow. Ruben Amorim, I was in my living room applauding. I was up on my feet in applause. What a performance from Manchester United. What a game of football. Honestly, I love this sport. I love this sport so much. Manchester United come away from Anfield with a 2-2 draw and a point, and at the end, they could have gotten it. They could have gotten it. But before we get into that, if you're new to the channel, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on today's game. If you're new, as I said, join the community. It's free. This year, I'm hoping to hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you guys would help me do that, that would be very much appreciated. And those of you who are returning subscribers, welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about Ruben Amorim's Red Devils. But without further ado, Happy New Year, and let's get right into it. Now, where do you even begin with a game like this? I think coming into the game, everybody believed that Manchester United were going to be absolutely run through. And deservedly so. These guys they were 14th coming into this game, and there was no expectation. People thought the 7-0, they were going to run it back again. They thought Mohamed Salah was going to come into this game and he's going to get all his FPL captains to feast, but that was not the case. Nowhere near it. I mean, Manchester United in the first half, it was a 0-0 first half, and for the most part, they kind of controlled the game. Of course, Liverpool had their moments. Mohamed Salah creating that chance for McAllister, Cody Gakpo putting that shot just wide, and Liverpool probably could have gone into the half 1-0 up, but Manchester United also had their chances with Rasmus Højlund's 1v1. We'll get onto him in a minute, but I think Manchester United overall were very content with the first half, and they probably felt going into the second half that maybe they should have taken their chances going into that second half, because we all know Liverpool. We all know Arne Slot. Once he starts to figure out what you're doing in the first half, he comes out into that second half, makes a few tweaks, makes a few changes, and next thing you know, Manchester United are 4-0 down. And last time they came to Anfield a few years ago, they were 0-0 at halftime, and then they lost the game 7-0. So nobody knew what was going to happen. But you got to give credit to this team, man. You got to give credit to Manchester United. Now, I'm not saying they went to Anfield and they played Liverpool off the park. Nobody's saying that. This Manchester United team is not good. Let's keep it honest here. Like, these players are not very good. But some of the performances today, honestly, Kobbie Mainoo, a lot of people have been wondering whether this guy can play in a double pivot, whether he's athletic enough, physical enough, and he has that understanding of the game. But today, man, I mean, Gravenberch, McAllister, and Curtis Jones, those have been some of the best midfielders in all of England the entire year. And he was incredible today. He was so good today. There were moments in the game where I felt he could have been more intentional in his play. He could have moved the ball a bit faster. He could have taken a touch and then moved it rather than kind of holding onto the ball in moments. But overall, he was very good. And the man next to him, nobody's talking about it, but Manuel Ugarte. Oh my goodness. Manuel Ugarte. That performance from Manuel Ugarte today was ridiculous. Nobody's going to talk about him, as I said. But the amount of duels he won today, I believe he won 7 out of his 7 or 8 duels. He attempted the most on the field. The guy was everywhere. Like, he was just everywhere. And you saw that in the way that Manchester United were playing. Because their midfield double pivot was so good, unlike it was against Newcastle where you had Casemiro and Eriksen, players like Bruno Fernandes were able to move farther up the pitch. And him also dropping deeper into those midfield areas helped Manchester United. We saw it against Newcastle when Kobbie Mainoo was brought onto the field for Joshua Zirkzee. That 3-man midfield was able to navigate the game a little bit better against Newcastle's very combative midfield. And in this game, it was the same thing. Bruno Fernandes was everywhere. He completed the most duels in the game. And the reason I mentioned duels and defensive actions is because I feel like with Manchester United, it's not always a case of player quality. Of course, there are players in this team that are not good enough. Rasmus Højlund. I don't know how many games we need to watch before these guys get rid of this guy. He's not good enough, and he's not ever going to be good enough. He doesn't do enough on the field for you to even believe like he's going to be a good player for Manchester United. But that's neither here nor there. I think everybody should be in the know about how poor Rasmus Højlund is as a striker at this point. But someone like Bruno Fernandes, I bring up the duels and I bring up the defensive actions because it feels like a lot of the times in certain games, Manchester United, it's not a case of the quality isn't there, more of a case of the spirit and the passion and the desire to win the game is in there. You look at someone like Ruben Amorim as the coach, and we'll get a little bit more detail with him later on in the video, but his ideas are there. You can see illustrations of his idea in the team, even in these little few weeks that he's been at the club, but it doesn't feel like the players are buying into the idea. But today, they definitely bought into that idea. And I think Bruno Fernandes solved so many problems for them. Problems that maybe down the line they would need to address when Bruno Fernandes ultimately maybe becomes too old for the club, or maybe he's not available, or maybe they believe he's not good enough for the team. They're going to need to fix. But today, he was everywhere, winning the ball back, driving with the ball. I saw Bruno Fernandes driving with the ball. I've never seen this before. Driving with the ball, playing switches, playing intricate passes. You look at his assist for Lisandro Martinez. I mean, come on. Drags 4 players out of position and just plays that reverse pass in between. I believe it was McAllister and Gravenberg. Lisandro Martinez 1-0. And even Diogo Dalot, he's not been great these past few weeks. Those wing backs have taken a lot of criticism under the Amorim system because they're not wing backs. These guys are fullbacks. But I think today they were really good. Of course, that has to do with Trent not having his best game, but I think it also has to do with Manchester United forcing the issue and Diogo Dalot actually taking him on and actually forcing the narrative and pushing Liverpool back. Liverpool are always going to play that high line, so I think Manchester United having that width was imperative because it allowed people like Rasmus Højlund getting in behind. It allowed people like Amad Diallo to get in behind, and also Alejandro Garnacho when he came on in the game. So for me, Manchester United, the players looked like they wanted it. Harry Maguire, he looked like he wanted it. Matthias de Ligt, unfortunately, he gave away the penalty. And I would like to know you guys' thoughts on it. I think looking back at it, I was in the heat of the moment. You know, your blood is boiling, you're excited, the adrenaline's going. And I see Manchester United concede that penalty. And in my head, I'm like, that's not a penalty. Like, it's a penalty based on the rules of the sport and what we watch and what the referees have told us is a penalty and what is a handball. By the law, it's a penalty. But I'm looking at the situation. In that situation, what do you want de Ligt to do? Genuinely, what do you want the man to do? Because in my opinion, he's turning to see where the ball is going because I believe it was Nunez who flicked the ball on and the ball then hits his hand as he's turning. And for me, it's like, what do you want the defender to do there? Bear in mind, the ball is also coming at incredibly high speed. Incredibly high speed. I really don't understand what they expected de Ligt to do there. But as I said, if the ball hits you in that sort of position and your arm is that outstretched, they're usually going to give that as a penalty. But even somebody like Lisandro Martinez, who's come under a lot of criticism, even looking away from his goal, you look at how quick and impactful the defenders were in coming out of the back and driving into the midfield and even sometimes pressing those Liverpool forwards when they drop deep. I think that's the most important part of this Ruben Amorim system. If you're not going to have midfielders who are athletic, and you don't have those midfielders, and you have midfielders who are very close to each other in the midfield, you need players around them who support them. You need those wing backs to hold that width. You need those center backs to push up when they need to. You need those number 10s to drop back like Bruno was doing when they need to support. It's imperative. And I feel like the system is right, and you can see imprints of it, but I don't think the players were buying into it. And of course, today in a game against Liverpool, they bought into it. I think they were just up for the game. Genuinely, that's all I believe. I just believe the players were up for it. And that's why you saw them playing as well as they did today. Now, of course, as I mentioned before, the minute detail that I mentioned earlier that I thought was the reason the second goal actually even occurred, Amad Diallo's goal. And for me, it all starts off between Alejandro Garnacho's cross and the time in between that cross and Amad Diallo meeting it in the box just in front of Robertson. Now, the most important thing to look at here is Alejandro Garnacho. He's coming in, and Trent Alexander-Arnold in this situation is playing as a center back because it was a counterattack from Manchester United that led to this situation. It's actually a 3v, I believe, 7. So in this situation, there's not really much of a threat. If Manchester United want to create something, the idea would probably be to go towards the 6-yard box where Rasmus Højlund can attack that, but you have Trent Alexander-Arnold as well as Virgil van Dijk defending that area of the box. But then at the same time, you have at the top of your screen, if you notice very closely, you have Andy Robertson and Amad Diallo tussling it out to get into the box. Now, one thing that I noticed when I was watching the goal was Alejandro Garnacho didn't do the typical thing of crossing it into the 6-yard box as you would typically expect. He didn't cross it into this area as most wingers probably would do, hoping their striker would get into that area. As we mentioned before, Rasmus Højlund offers you nothing as a striker. But then you move it on, and I only noticed this when I watched the replay, and I was like, that's the reason that whole goal happens. Because here, Andy Robertson knows all this space is in behind, and he probably believes, as long as I defend this space, I'm fine. As long as I defend all this space in behind, there shouldn't really be anything happening here. As I said, it's a 3v7 for Liverpool. They're pretty comfortable. So what Andy Robertson ends up doing is he kind of bumps Amad Diallo back. He bumps him very slightly, a little bump here. You can see his arm around Amad Diallo's chest, sort of a little bump, which sort of makes sense. If you're defending your 6-yard box, that's typically what you want them to do. You want to move your attacker away from where the ball you believe is going to go. So he kind of bumps him slightly. But funnily enough, that bump creates a little bit of space. Now, of course, it's not a lot of space, maybe an arm's length amount of space, but that's enough space in professional football. And that amount of space actually creates a diversion for Diallo, because I believe initially Diallo was probably going to run into this 6-yard area and probably make a senseless run alongside Rasmus Højlund into an area where they were never ever going to get the ball. But I think Alejandro Garnacho, in the screenshot, you could actually even see that he kind of looks up. He looks up to see where Amad Diallo is. And in that split second between Andy Robertson nudging Amad Diallo, creating that separation, you see Diallo making this run. And Alejandro Garnacho cuts the ball back. Alexander-Arnold is running forward. What's his name? Virgil van Dijk is also running forward. And then Alejandro Garnacho just plays this lovely cut back. And that space afforded to Diallo, he takes advantage of it. Runs into the space. And we all know what happens from there. But none of that would even happen if Andy Robertson doesn't create that space between them with that little nudge. And you have to look at it again, this guy. And of course, you then look at the goal, even after the nudge and even after the pass, the ball then goes through his legs. It's unlucky. But Andy Robertson again today, I mean, this guy is not... He's been incredible for Liverpool over the many, many years he's been at the club. But my brother, they need to find a solution for this guy. They need to find a solution. But don't think we forgot about Trent. Irritating twins. The two of them today, absolutely horrible. Both of them terrible throughout the game. Manchester United were taking advantage of it all throughout the game. Mazraoui, Diallo, Fernandes, Dallo, just having their fun really with those wide areas of the field. But I think when you kind of take your lens away from it, it goes back to the point that I was thinking about earlier and points that I made in my ranking video. If you haven't watched it, make sure you check it out. I just believe this Manchester United team, the sky's the limit with Ruben Amorim. I'm not saying they're going to win the league next season. I'm not even going to say they're winning next season or the season after that. But you need to back this guy. You need to give him time. You need to give him resources. You need to give him signings. You need to invest in the idea, because I genuinely believe if they invest in this man properly, you're going to see a lot of good things with this Manchester United team. A lot of good things. I watched his press conference earlier after the game. He talked about he was upset. Bruno Fernandes said similar things. I'm upset with this result because it makes us wonder, why can't we play like this against Nottingham Forest, against Newcastle, against Arsenal? Why can't we play like this every single week against Wolves? And I think Ruben Amorim said the same thing because I don't think that passion and that desire to win is there every single week. I think a lot of these players, okay, when it's a big game, they're up for it, as you would expect from any professional. When you're going to Anfield, you're playing the best team in the league, and everybody believes you're going to get smashed in a derby, in a rivalry. You're going to be up for it. But when you're going away from home to Wolverhampton Wanderers on a cold, wet night, on a Tuesday night, who really cares? But that's not the way you need to believe. That's not the way you need to think. And Ruben Amorim kept on emphasizing that everybody's going to praise my players. Everybody's going to laud them for the performance today. But I'm going to go in and tell them that we need to improve. And I'm actually very upset with today's performance because we could have won today. We could have won today's game. And today's performance shows me that you guys can perform like that. So why haven't we been performing like that in the past few weeks? My job is on the line here, and you guys have been performing like that when this is what you can actually do. I mean, well, what do you really expect from Manchester United? You don't know what to expect with this team. But for me, what I do know is a certainty. If these guys back this guy, sky's the limit for these lot. Honestly. I mean, I watched that game today, and I was like, I watched the Spurs game as well, where they lost 4-3, individual mistakes from both goalkeepers. And people will make it seem like, the only reason Man United were in that game was because Fraser Foster made 2 big errors. But I don't believe that. I genuinely believe if Christian Eriksen was a bit more clinical, if Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee were actually strikers, Man United could have gotten something from that game. You look at their 2-0 defeat against Arsenal a few weeks ago. It was 2 set pieces. Man United played very well in that game. You look at their win against Manchester City. I watched their Europa League games against Pilsen. And of course, Victoria Pilsen is not a great team, but you can see something building. You can see something there. I'm watching their games against Wolves, Newcastle. There's no fight. And of course, against Newcastle, he got it completely wrong. The midfield setup was completely wrong to start with. But I think Manuel Ugarte today showed you, and Bruno Fernandes today showed you, that they're indispensable in this team. And if those two are not there, there's not really much to really see in this Manchester United team. But of course, there wasn't only one team that played in this game. We move on to Liverpool, and I think Liverpool, not really much to say on them. I don't think they can really be too mad about the results. A lot of people are trying to make it seem like Liverpool played a terrible game and they were absolutely horrendous and they played their worst game of the entire season, and that's the only reason why Manchester United were any good in this game. All right, man. Just give your credit and move on. You don't need to. I hate this whole narrative that people try to spin as though a team didn't play well. The only reason they look good is because the other team was completely garbage. But I guess that's modern day football for you. Manchester United were incredible, and I think they made Liverpool look average. I don't think it's because Liverpool played badly. I think Man United were just really well set up. I think Arne Slot in this game got it really, really bad. With Trent Alexander-Arnold, he should have taken him off a lot earlier. I think Curtis Jones had no impact in this game whatsoever. His midfield partners in McAllister and Gravenberch were really good in this game, but I think Curtis Jones offered nothing. Luis Diaz was completely silenced in this game. Mohamed Salah, for all the praise we'll give him, and of course he leaves this game with a goal, he had no impact in this game. He really did not have any impact in this game whatsoever. So Liverpool, I think Manchester United just stifled them really well. I think the wing players were stifled through the wing backs of Manchester United, as well as the center backs supporting on the cover. I think the midfielders were really well stifled by Bruno Fernandes moving all over the field. Trent Alexander-Arnold was also under a lot of pressure because Mohamed Salah does not track back. So really and truly, I think Liverpool, it's a point. You take the point and you go. Of course, you probably expected to win the game comfortably, and I think that's probably what hurt them in the end. That arrogance and that confidence that they were going to smash Manchester United, but it is what it is. You take your point, you move on. 6 points clear with a game in hand. I don't think they'll win that game in hand, though. I think they'll probably draw that away to Everton. Depends when they play the game, though. But I think with Liverpool, just take the point and go. I mean, you're playing Manchester United at home. It's always going to be a difficult fixture. It's always going to be a tricky game. Just move on. I don't think there's any real alarm bells ringing for Liverpool. I think Arne Slot just got a few things wrong. A few players didn't really turn up today, but I think today's Manchester United's day. And if Harry Maguire had just taken that chance, we'd be saying a whole different thing. But of course, let me know what you guys thought in the comment section down below. What did you think about the players who played in this game? Who did you think were the highlights? Who did you think were the lowlights? Rasmus Højlund was definitely a lowlight. And what did you think about the overall state of the game? Do you think Manchester United are on the way up, or is this just another Manchester City result and then they go back to normal? So let me know all of that down in the comments. Manchester United fans, let me know, are you guys optimistic? Because I am, and I don't even support this club. I think if they actually get their resources right, we're going to see some good things. And Liverpool fans as well, let me know. What do you think about the rest of the league season? Do you think you're going to run away with it, or do you think Arsenal is going to catch you? I don't think they will. But let me know all of that and a lot more. Take care.